Hello everyone, this is Turin here, and today guys, I'm here with another Total War Warhammer online commentary. In this battle, I'm going to be playing the Vampire Counts led by Vlad von Karsine. We're going to be facing off against Norsca and Wolfric the Wanderer. So I know a lot of you guys had been asking to see this matchup, and it's definitely very tough for the Vampire Counts. As you guys know, historically giants as well as Shaggoths and other large monsters units are very good against the vampires, and honestly in the past that was one of the only ways that Chaos could actually beat the vampires was if they brought a bunch of giants and just stacked them on top of halberds. But regardless, the same is still true. So mammoths are quite strong against the Vampire Counts. They're mobile, they have a good anti-infantry bonus to clean up Graveguard and skeletons and fodder, and they have amazing splash damage as well. So definitely got to watch out for those bad boys. So I experimented with a few different builds, and I kind of found this one to be pretty good. I tried out Blood Knights, but I found that the Blood Knights would kind of get headed off by the Maws of Savagery, and it was really hard to get good surrounds on the mammoths because the mammoths would then just stack on top of their infantry. And the Blood Knights would be forced into spears. They would be fighting against Throg. Even though, on paper, they're good against Throg with their anti-large bonus and relatively high DPS, it still wasn't working out that well for me. So what I decided to do was try a bit of a kind of a Death Star style of build. Just a very tanky, using a lot of skeleton spears, but more importantly, crypt horrors. And guys, these are the answer to Norsca. They are so incredibly good. Their mass is big enough that the mammoths can't push past them. So if you get a good surround on the mammoths or pin them in the middle of a formation with a bunch of crypt horrors, not only do they have good armor piercing values, they actually have, 70? Wasn't it more before? I could have sworn it was 80 at some point, but I guess it's just 70. They actually have had a cost increase in this patch too. I think they cost 100 more. But regardless, the crypt horrors are a very, very good hard counter to the mammoths. Well, I wouldn't say hard counter, but they're one of the best tools the Vampire Counts have. Because the mammoths aren't really, number one, efficient at killing them, and number two, they can't push past them. And even if they're able to, the crypt horrors are quite fast with 50 speed, and they're going to have them poisoned, so they can keep up and kind of keep that steady DPS. In the front line, I have a combination of Graveguard and Skeleton Warriors. So Graveguard are going to trade pretty efficiently with Marauders, and most of the time when people do bring mammoths, you're not going to be seeing champions, because the Marauder champions themselves cost I think 1,100. They're very expensive. So you're going to be seeing standard Marauders and probably not Berserkers in this matchup, but regardless, Marauders. So these guys are going to do very well. They have 36 melee defense, and they have a true bonus versus infantry of 8. So definitely not bad at all. So aside from that, I do have some skeletons, and skeletons are, obviously a fodder unit, but they have decent stats themselves with 24 melee defense and 20 melee attack, which is not bad for, kind of a 300 gold type unit. So just a hybrid front line. You can see it's mixed of the Graveguard, skeletons, and more. So Sternsman in the middle, of course, anchoring everything, and then more skeletons and more Graveguard on the far side. So 3 cryptors here. And these guys are just basically a very heavy contingent to go after the elephants and, other monstrous units. They're not bad for going after heroic units like a Throg or something else like that, or, pretty much anything. I mean, they hit hard and they can slow, and, they have enough mass to push through things. For my leadership, I decided I want to go very tanky, and Vlad is probably one of the more durable lords, and mammoths are quite beastly, as you guys know. So I figured, hey, Master Beguilement, this ability that Vlad has, giving it negative 58 melee attack for almost a minute, is going to be very good at kind of mitigating a lot of the damage that the mammoths would be doing. So I do have Vlad, and again, he's durable and can run amongst his infantry and is not an easy target for Norscan, javelins and things like that. So with him, he does have Raised Dead, which has been nerfed. So you guys can see now it does have a 19-second cooldown, which I'm totally fine with. I think it's balanced. And personally, I still think the Vampire Counts are a very strong faction. They do have Von Hell's Danse Macabre, and then I have the Invocation from Nehek and the Blood Drinker to give them that steady healing. So I also did get a Necromancer. So kind of, Raised Dead obviously has that big nerf, which I think is completely justified, but I figured the only way I was really going to win this is if I was able to shut down his javelins in the back line, because it's kind of just like chess. My cryptors are the counter to, his mammoths, but the counter to my cryptors are the javelins. So if I can't kill the javelins, my cryptors are going to die, and the mammoths are just going to, pretty much toss the salad of all my infantry. So, a very tough situation there. Hopefully you guys like that lovely analogy. But basically, I needed zombie summon. So I have some with Vlad, of course, but he's relatively slow. So I wanted to have a necromancer on a horse that I could ride around and just raise dead in the back line. Marauder, spearmen, or javelins, or where are these guys in the back? Let's go ahead and take a look so I can actually get this right. The Marauder Hunters over here, they actually have decent melee stats. They have a 26 melee attack, and they have 28 weapon strength. So they will be able to beat the zombies, but regardless, if I can keep them shut down long enough, just keep that zombie pressure on them in conjunction with my Fellbats, as well as the Dire Pack that I do have lurking somewhere over here on the far side, I should be able to take them down. So that's pretty much it from my army, a few groups of skeleton spears. For my opponent, he does have, a pretty interesting army, and I don't mean that in the way that it's bad. But he's using the Icehorn Marauders as well as the standard Marauders in the front line as kind of a tank unit, which isn't bad against the Vampire Counts. They have higher melee defense. They're going to be a little bit more durable. And then he's going to be using the Trolls in the back line, who kind of count as his AP. So the Trolls are going to be working pretty heavily on my my Graveguard. So Trolls mixed in there. He's got the Brutes of the Hound. And the Brutes of the Hound are one of those regiments of renown that I personally think are just incredibly good, regardless of the matchup. I wouldn't bring them in every single matchup, but they're really strong. I mean, incredible stats. They're going to massacre skeletons, zombies, skeleton spears. They'll cut through them in no time. And he does have Wulfric the Wanderer on a Mammoth and a Giant. So this was definitely kind of a good example at putting that, anti-large, Crypt Horror test to the test. So we're going to see if we can shut down Wulfric as well as his Giant over here. He does also have a Skinwolf Werekin, 2 Javelins, and Spears in the back. So without further ado, guys, let's see if the Vampire Counts can take it to Norsca. So Wulfric on a Mammoth, definitely a pretty good choice. I mean, personally, I think Throg is a little better because he has a regeneration and anti-large. I like to get like the Soul Crusher or the War Shrine or something else like that. But I need to be really careful with my Mortis Engine as well, because the Mortis Engine has, what's its speed? 50. And the Mammoths themselves have 56, so the Mammoths can really just chase down that thing. Granted, the Claw of Nagash in this matchup is quite important because you're going to be doing a lot of running with that. So you definitely want to make sure that you're slowing the Mammoth down with the speed debuff of the Claw of Nagash, and then just trying to pin them with all those Crypt Horrors. So right now, we're just kind of forming up ranks here. You can see all my Graveguard, and, very, very thematic, just lining up before the fight. We're letting each other, it's a gentleman's agreement. But we're lining up right here. I'm getting my Fellbats in position, and you can also see my Dire Pack in the back is coming around. Dire Pack are also another good pick here. Granted, he didn't bring Skinwolves, but Skinwolves would, definitely massacre the Dire Pack pretty efficiently. But nonetheless, having anti-large in these guys is not bad. And once, Ice Trolls or a Giant, breaks or flees or anything like that, the Dire Pack is going to be very, very good on the cleanup duty. So we're advancing in the front line. You can see my Crypt Horrors are going to get pathed in here in just a moment. My Graveguard are engaged. But the Trolls should do a pretty good job kind of, getting in here. And you can see he quickly pulls them back. Very, very good micro right there, making sure they don't take that initial charge. So the Skeletons are going to charge into some of these Marauders, and, the Marauders will obviously win, but the Skeleton stats aren't that far off, to be honest. On the far side, you can see the Graveguard have engaged with the Iceform Marauders here, who are quite jacked. These guys actually have 45 melee attack and 38 melee defense, and are immune to Vigor. So Skeleton Spears are also engaging on this Giant right here. I made sure to path that, and you can see I did summon some zombies in the back line with my Necromancer right here, and I'm just going to park this Claw of Nagash right here to just ensure that, I drain all these troops down. It's going to cause fear and terror, and it's going to be very strong. So you can see all my Crypt Horrors right now are just kind of zerging on his Lord, kind of clipping at the legs of this Giant Mammoth, and they will take a little bit of damage, but honestly, the Crypt Horrors with Invocation of Nehek, the Mammoths aren't going to be terribly efficient there. You can also see I did drop the Master Beguilement, putting his melee attack to 0. So that's heavily going to, mitigate his offensive stats. And even though he's going to knock over some of the Graveguard here, I don't know how that would actually work out with damage. But you can see my opponent drops a really good Seafang. It just goes through all my fodder units and does massive damage to the Skeleton. So very well played. In the meantime, you can see Vlad von Karsine is running in here. He's going to be having a little bit of fun kind of chasing after Wulfric. But still, I have him tar pitted. He's poisoned. His speed is 23. He hasn't started taking a lot of damage yet, but this damage will add up, guys. And at that same time, my Claw of Nagash isn't taking damage. So it's not necessarily the fact that the Crypt Horrors are going to just massacre Wulfric. It's the fact that they pin him down. Look, my opponent is trying to escape right here. He's trying to path away, but he's having so much trouble. He's having to go up and around the mass of my Crypt Horrors. So very, very good stuff there. At that same time, you can see Vlad von Karsine over here is actually fighting against the Skinwolf Werekin, and he is laying a royal smacking on him. He has the support of some of these Crypt Horrors here, and, they're doing a pretty good job. So, they can heal right back at him. Definitely some good stuff. In the back, I did get my zombies, or I actually summoned Skeletons back here. So hard summon Skeletons, which actually will trade pretty well with these Marauders, because Skeletons, as you know, do have much better stats than zombies. So the Marauder Javelins have been shut down. Over on the far side, my Dire Pack was able to get onto this other group and actually completely shatter them with the support of some summoned zombies. So the fact that I was able to get in the back line and shut down those Javelins was, an essential factor in, this game going well so far. Unfortunately for me, Wulfric the Wanderer is still in pretty good shape, and my opponent was able to escape and actually pull up and around. So he pulled all his troops down here, and then he was able to kind of reunify with his pocket of infantry that were still fighting. So over here, he has the Marauder Champions who have 114 kills. They've, beaten down the Skeletons for the most part. Did a little bit of work against some of the zombies, but, it did not go bad at all in my infantry line. I still have a ton of Graveguard over here and some Skeleton Spears who are in pretty much perfect shape. And you can see the Skinwolf Werekin. That's why one of the reasons why these guys are so strong. I mean, even if they break off like this, they're pretty fast. So number one, they're going to get away. And number two, when they come back, they're going to have an extra 500, 700 HP from where they were. But now this is exactly where we want this game. You can see all the Crypt Horrors right here, again, just swarming on these monstrous units. My Claw of Nagash was parked a little bit close, but it wasn't getting targeted, so I felt relatively safe keeping it here. But you guys will see in a moment, I'm going to pull it back. But it's draining all these Norscan infantry, and the Norscan infantry themselves aren't really known for, great leadership. Even the champions, I think, are rocking 65, 70, 80, maybe in that range. I guess 80 leadership's good, but I don't think it's that great. So Claw of Nagash and different things like that are going to be very good for terror routing these guys and just draining them, and then allowing you to really isolate these monstrous units. So again, kind of the sequence of events in this game is you need to shut down the Javelins, which then allows your Crypt Horrors and your Claw of Nagash to really function. So you can see Vlad von Karsine is going to overcast a big juicy Invocation of Nehek here, and Wulfric is still poisoned. He still has that Master of Beguilement, so it's been on him for a large portion of this battle. He hasn't really been able to do a whole lot. So it's been good. Let's go ahead and take a look at his kills, actually. So he actually has 70 kills, but I think a lot of those were honestly just from the zombies. You can see the Crypt Horrors right here who've been fighting him the entire time are in pretty good shape. I mean, here I've lost maybe a few Crypt Horrors, 2 models here, and this one group is pretty tattered at 6, but nonetheless, doing some good work. So you can see a lot of the Norscan trolls are routing off, and if I had one critique of my opponent's build, I honestly would have just, cut those ice trolls. And you can see he drops a fat sea fang, just shooting right through all my infantry right here. But I would have dropped the trolls. I see what he was trying to do with having marauders and then have them be the, the heavy DPS there. And also the Norscan ice trolls do have frostbite. You can see the dire pack here just nipping at the heels of these ice trolls as they try and flee. But regardless, I think, just getting Femir warriors or, another mammoth. You could have cut these two Norscan ice trolls and gotten like a feral mammoth or something. And just having that extra monstrous peasants is so tough to deal with for the vampires. Regardless, I think Cryptors are one of the answers here. You can see they're able to just tar pit him. And I have taken a lot of casualties, and it is a relatively even battle, but you guys can see the balance of power is kind of coming back in my favor. He does get some ice trolls coming back here in the fourth quarter. They're going to start, having some mortal combat with some of these Cryptors here, so you can see they're just clubbing and smacking each other. But, I wonder who would win that in a straight fight. Probably the Cryptors because of the poison, but you never know. These Norscan ice trolls got some pretty big clubs. But you can see the draining is going on in here. This giant right here is just laying a bit of a smackdown on, some of my fodder units, but they're doing their job. And you guys can also see there's a lot of skeletons in here. So the skeletons with their anti-large are really going to kind of add up against the Norscan giants. The Norscan giants, or giants in general, have relatively low armor. So spears and blood knights will do well against them. But where I was struggling in some of my testing matches was the Blood Knights didn't seem terribly efficient against Wolfric and Armored War Mammoths. Because, again, the Blood Knights have like 36 weapon strength with a bonus for large of 15. But against armor, they don't really have good AP value. So that tends to be a very tough situation, at least anecdotally. Again, I'd like to know your guys' thoughts on that. So the army composition seemed okay. Graveguard in the front line, supported by some skeleton spears, were able to hold the line at the very least. And the Cryptors, even though they didn't rack up a ton of kills, really just were able to kind of shut down Wolfric and just chase him around and keep constant pressure. Even during the course of the game, my opponent made a comment about not being able to get past the Cryptors. He's like, I can't get past those Cryptors. They were obstructing him and kind of trolling him a little bit. But I think they're good. They have that mass. And I actually noticed a few of you guys had said that in the comments that they were good against Norsca, and it's definitely true. Granted, I've also played a few games as Norsca against the vampire counts where they weren't able to shut down my javelins, and my javelins just annihilated the Cryptors with their anti-large. The 35 weapon strength plus a 15 versus large, it's very tough for sure. So very well played to my opponent, Fusion. Look forward to running into you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that Vampire Counts game. Have an excellent night, and take care.